And so I just want to talk a little bit about Moses and Aaron and Joshua, because we are in the presence today of a lot of Moses. We're in the presence today of giants whose shoulders we stand on. People who battled on behalf not just of African Americans, but on behalf of all of America, that battled for America's soul, that shed blood, that endured taunts and torment. In some cases gave the full measure of their devotion. Like Moses, they challenged Pharaoh, the princes, powers who said that some are atop and others are at the bottom. That's how it's always going to be. There were people like Annie Cooper and Marie Foster and Jimmy Lee Jackson and Maurice Olette, C.T. Vivian, Reverend Lowery, John Lewis, who said we can imagine something different, that we know that there's something out there for us too, that God has made us in His image, and that we reject the notion that we will, for the rest of our lives, be confined to a station of inferiority, that we can't aspire to the highest of heights, that our talents can't be expressed to their fullest. And so, because of what they endured, because of what they marched, they led a people out of bondage. They took them across a sea that folks thought could not be parted. They wandered through a desert, but always knowing that God was with them, and that if they maintained that trust in God, that they would be all right. And it's because they marched that the next generation hasn't been blooded so much. It's because they marched that we elected councilmen, congressmen. It's because they marched that we have Arthur Davis and Keith Ellison. It's because they marched that I got the kind of education I got, that I got a law degree, a seat in the Illinois Senate, and ultimately in the United States Senate. Is because they marched that I stand before you here today. And I was mentioning at the Unity Breakfast this morning, my debt is even greater than that. Because not only is my career the result of the work of the men and women who we honor here today, my very existence might not have been possible had it not been for some of the folks here today. I mentioned at the Unity Breakfast that a lot of people been asking, well, you know, your father was from Africa. Your mother, she's a white woman from Kansas. I'm not sure that you have the same experience. And I tried to explain it. You don't understand. You see, my grandfather was a cook to the British in Kenya. Grew up in a small village. And all his life, that's all he was a cook and a houseboy. And that's what they called him even when he was 60 years old. They called him a houseboy. Wouldn't call him by his last name. Call him by his first name. Sound familiar? And he had to carry a passbook around, because Africans in their own land, in their own country at that time, because it was a British colony, could not move about freely. They could only go where they were told to go. They could only work where they were told to work. And yet something happened back here in Selma, Alabama. Something happened in Birmingham that sent out what Bobby Kennedy called ripples of hope all around the world. Something happened when a bunch of women decided we're going to walk instead of ride the bus after a long day of doing somebody else's laundry and looking after somebody else's children. When men who had PhDs were working as Pullman porters decided that's enough and we're going to stand up despite the risks for our dignity and our respect, that sent a shout across oceans. So that my grandfather began to imagine something different for his son. And his son, who grew up herding goats in a small village in Africa, could suddenly set his sights a little higher and suddenly believe that maybe a black man in this world had a chance. And what happened in Selma, Alabama and Birmingham also stirred the conscience of the nation. And it worried folks in the White House who said, we're battling communism. How are we going to win the hearts and minds all across the world if right here in our own country, John, we're not observing the ideals that are set forth in our Constitution? We might be accused of being hypocrites. So the Kennedys decided we're going to do an airlift. We're going to go out to Africa. And we're going to start bringing young Africans over to this country and give them scholarships to study so that they can learn what a wonderful country America is. And this young man named Barack Obama got one of those tickets and came over to this country. And he met this woman whose great-great-great-great-grandfather had owned slaves. But she had a different idea. There's some good craziness going on because they looked at each other and they decided, we know that in the world as it has been, it might not be possible for us to get together and have a child. But something stirred across the country because of what happened in Selma, Alabama, because some folks are willing to march across the bridge. So they got together and Barack Obama Jr. was born. So don't tell me I don't have a claim on Selma, Alabama.